Welcome back to First Strike here on Sports Money, preeminent destination for early best bets for the UFC and all things MMA here. We're excited to be back to join you guys for UFC 312. It's a big pay-per-view card down under. It's going to be a later start this week here. We got the 6 p.m. Eastern pop-off. Lots of juggling in the card. Recent information might look like a staph infection for Sean Strickland. We'll see what happens with the main event, but the boys are here. They're ready to get into combat. We've got 4 fights to break down. Lines are moving, so you're going to want to get them while they're hot. Before we get into that, though, the Apex Predators of the Octagon and MMA, Jeff, Fanatical Jim, and Subhuman are ready to roll. Jeff, how we feeling?
Fantastic as always. Looking forward to this card. A little bit of a later start, like you mentioned. We got 13 fights, and I'll tell you what, this is going to be a crazy one. There's a lot of debutantes coming out there. It's going to be an exciting one. Some of these lines seem a little out of whack to me, but it's definitely going to be a fun one. And looking forward to hearing what your guys' thoughts are for these.
Let's go. Definitely some crazy lines out there, Fanatical Jim. What do you think? How you feeling?
Well, Mike, I'm feeling sick, physically sick. I'm congested. I have a fever. I'm not feeling well at all. But there's no sick days in combat sports. I'm sick of my performance in January. I'm sick of Shara faking his sickness. I'm just sick of everything. But it is February. We're turning over a new leaf. This card is something special, but we can make money on it. So looking forward to breaking it down.
And Subhuman Gaucho is making money all over but he's going to move over to the combat arena in the cage. Sub, how you feeling tonight?
Pretty good. I'm excited for this run of fights. We've got a good load coming up in front of us here. So, kind of time to keep the nose to the grindstone. January was a little slow, but yeah, it's a pretty fun pay-per-view. I don't know if it's the best, main card ever, but I think top to bottom, it's got a fair number of fun fights. As Jeff was saying, some debutantes, fair number of undefeated fighters. I think there's 5, which is seems like a lot in the UFC. So yeah, we're gonna learn some things, make some money. Looking forward to it.
Well, the UFC has been stocking the pond with the Dana White Contender Series and bringing on a lot of regional combatants, and I think that's why we're seeing some of these undefeated opportunities. And we've got a couple of them we're going to talk about tonight. So let's get to work, gentlemen. Time to roll up the sleeves and go after these battles here. We're going to start with MMA Jeff, as we do. He's got a extravaganza that's going to pop off here, and I'm looking forward to hearing him talk about this one here. We're got a little blend of dogs and favorites, but dog prices pretty much across the board tonight. And Jeff, take it away.
So we got Jonathan Micallef versus Kevin Jousset. Micallef here is a hometown fighter out of Australia and is currently and regionally ranked number 4 in Australia in the New Zealand circuit. Making his UFC debut, he impressed with a first-round triangle choke in the Dana White Contender Series, earning himself a UFC contract, bringing him to his debut fight here. He's 7-1 as a pro, but he hasn't really faced the best fighters in the Hex. It's a lesser-known promotion and not a very solid league. You're not seeing a lot of great competition in there. So he's been knocking people out. He's been submitting dudes in that league. And, he's looking good. He's looking real good. And then he even looked better in the Contender Series. He's not the best striker. He's got pretty good wrestling skills, but surprisingly, if he gets you down to the mat, he's not really thinking submission. So that kind of strikes me a little surprising, given the fact that, he can take you down if he gets the shot. So you got Jousset, on the other hand, who's a slightly older fighter. He's from France, but he's currently training in New Zealand, so we shouldn't see a lot of travel issues with him flying, across the little pond over to Australia. He's 10-3 as a pro fighter, looking for a bounce back after his first UFC loss to Jim's boy Brian Battle. He looked pretty good in the first round, but then he got clipped towards the second. Ended up losing by KO, I think, with like 3 or 3.5 minutes left in the second round. He is a striker who likes to move forward and put pressure on you, moving you against the cage and doing a lot of potential takedown looks and fighting in close. He's got great takedown defense. And if you put these fighters side by side as professionals, he overall averages more significant strikes and better takedown defense. Neither of these fighters are high volume fighters. which correlates with their fighting styles. Again, kind of wrestlers, grapplers. As I mentioned, you got Jousset, who does like to stay on the feet a little more. You got Micallef, who his path to victory in this one is takedowns and wrestling with top pressure and riding it out on the top just to get the victory, probably by decision if that's the case. You got Jousset on the other hand. I think it's going to be a tall test for Micallef there. I see Jousset. He should be forcing the pressure, landing more on the feet, low volume or not. I think he's going to land the better strikes. I don't see this one going to, or I don't see this one getting finished inside the distance. If it does get finished inside the distance, it's probably not going to be till later on in the fight. I did see Jousset by decision at plus 140, but I'm going to take a shot with Jousset and over 2.5. Brings it to plus 130. This way you're getting that late potential finish and you're getting Jousset. You're bringing that price down a little bit. So I'm going to roll with Jousset and over 2.5 at plus 130. Which brings us to the final prelim fight of the night. We got Jenkins and Gabriel Santos. Sub, how are we cashing in this one?
I'm pretty excited for this fight, Jack Jenkins and Gabriel Santos. And it's really in part, I'm going to make this a pretty one-sided breakdown because I'm really excited to get Santos back in the cage. Really high on this young man. I think he's inevitably going to be top 15. To be honest, it would not shock me if this guy is top 10 or top 5 sooner rather than later. Jack Jenkins has some good weapons. He's a pretty good starter. His leg kicks are deadly. That's probably his best weapon. But even on the feet, I think Santos is better. I think he's more dangerous. I think he has an awful lot more knockout power. And I think he can deal with those leg kicks. Santos switches stances a lot as it is. So even if he does get his leg banged up, I think he can switch stances. And as he switches stances, I think he's gonna find his groove and find he's gonna find which stance is more effective for dealing with those leg kicks. But the grappling upside here is just levels apart. Jenkins, he's shown a little bit more recently. I guess you could say he dealt with Herbert Burns. It's not really a feather in your cap. Burns pretty darn washed at this point. And he's done pretty well in the UFC in general. His one loss came to Chepe Mariscal, and he had some success early on in that fight. It ended with an injury as Chepe hip tossed him, and he ended up posting and damaging his arm. But Santos, on the other hand, I mean, this guy, super dangerous on the feet. He's got power in his hands. He's got great kicks. He's got good wrestling. So he can take this fight to the ground if he ever finds himself in danger on the feet. And, I think this can be a real coming out party for him. He's just 1-2 in the UFC, which sounds pretty poor, but you go back and you watch his losses, and it's really the losses that really raise his stock for me. For one thing, I think he beat Lerone Murphy. It was a razor sharp split decision and pretty darn impressive when you consider what Lerone Murphy, who is undefeated at this stage, has done throughout the UFC. I think Lerone Murphy is just a fight or two away from being in that number one contender spot. So he's already kind of in that championship discussion. And Santos very well could have beat him. And that was a short notice fight for Santos. So, just really impressive. Likewise with his loss to David Onama. He was winning most of that fight. He got caught with an uppercut. And he was a dog in both those fights. Now he comes in as a favorite here. I think it's well-deserved. I think it should be quite a bit higher. The tricky part came with me is, how do you play this? I think it could roll to a decision. And with the hometown, it does worry me a little bit that maybe Jenkins could get around, but I think Santos beats him pillar to post. So I'm on the spread minus 3.5. I think he takes all 3 rounds here. And quite frankly, I think there's a good chance that he finds a finish here, especially if he gets on top, which I expect he does. I think Jenkins, as I said, he's gotten a little bit better. He's shown a little bit of a ground game, but this is just levels different. And if Santos is getting on top, as much as Jenkins tries to scramble and whatnot, he's mistake prone on the ground. And when you've got a deadly submission artist like Gabriel Santos, it's a good way to get your neck or your arm snapped. or snatched up. Yeah, I like Santos here. I like him a lot. And at plus 150, I like that spread. You know, I grabbed that at Bet Online. Some of the domestics haven't opened it up, but DK opened it up. It was only minus 105. I still rather like it there. You know, plus 150 is only a 40% implied probability. I think it should probably be more like minus 150. So even at that minus 105 on DraftKings, I think there's a fair bit of value there as well. All right. Moving on here, we've got the co-main event of the evening, and this is a fight that I'm looking forward to. I really tells us what's left in the tank for Suarez, and is there a new champion, or is it and still? Mike's going to break this one down. Where are you headed, Mike?
This co-main could very well become the main if they don't find a situation that handles itself between DDP and, of course, you know, we see Sean Strickland. But what we've got here is a little battle, and you mentioned the co-main, a championship opportunity. Does the strap change hands? Weird line. Jeff talked about this at the onset of the program, and trying to make heads or tails of this thing didn't add up to me here. Suarez comes in, and look, the average, maybe you're a novice in MMA betting. You're going to look at this thing and you're going to say, well, it's got an undefeated fighter. She's a small favorite. She should go out there and take down Weili Zhang in Suarez. But, you know, the interesting part here, if you dig deeper, pull the covers back, we don't see a lot of combat time from Suarez. In fact, she's fought, 4 times since 2018. That's going to be, I think, a tremendous opportunity for Zhang. This is going to be a 5-round fight because it isn't for the strap. So the reality is, when you look at how these fighters match up, is there going to be gas tank issues for Suarez? Again, 4 times since 2018. What we know about Suarez, she likes to ground and pound. Yeah, she's a submission specialist there. She's a former wrestler, so that makes a ton of sense. She's a pullout artist. You know, you look at her number of fights out there, and it's, you know, listen, medical things happen. She did battle cancer. She did have a busted knee after a training session. There's a lot of things that are kind of going into her pedigree, contributing to that lack of fighting. But the stamina does become an issue. Weili Zhang is a ring brat there. She likes to get out there. She's fighting on a regular basis, 2-1 plus the number of fights in that last stretch of 4 years versus what we've seen from Suarez. And look, Zhang's faster. She hits harder. She's more technical. She worked on her wrestling in the last couple of years, and that's how she got herself to the championship. Obviously, we saw that Rose fight, and you could say, yeah, that was a difficult spot. It was a split decision. It was a split decision that she lost. She did go back. She went to the gym. She worked on her wrestling. She figured it out. The challenge here is going to be she's got a spotty takedown defense. Suarez's path to victory has to be going out there, shooting takedowns, trying to wrestle, you know, grapple as she can, but she can't stand and bang. And that's where I think, you know, the issue is going to be she's going to want to keep a slower pace, keep things at distance. That's going to work to the opposite of her benefit because we see Zhang can go out there, bang around. She's certainly comfortable wrestling, but wants to be on the offensive side of wrestling, not, you know, battling takedowns and getting taken down. So the reality becomes, as this thing goes deeper, I think we see that gas tank become the issue for Suarez. And I think we still find an opportunity where we say the champ and still champion in this opportunity going to be Weili Zhang. We got this thing early at plus 105. It is dropping across the markets. I believe this is an opportunity for Zhang to keep this belt in hand. And if you want to go to the conspiracy angle, look, Zhang comes out of China. There's a lot of market in China. There's a lot of opportunity for the UFC to increase its brand share out there. There's no way they want to see this Suarez, who's probably getting close to the end when it comes to retirement. You know, one fight every couple of years isn't going to cut it with Dana White's new UFC. We'll stay with little Weili Zhang action here. I think she goes out there, does enough to find this thing, probably wins by decision, or maybe a potentially late knockout in that 4th or 5th round. But plus 105 right now is good money. We'll take that. And we'll move on to Fanatical Jim. He's battling the ailments, but he's going to battle this fight card to see if we can get paid and cash some tickets. Fanatical Jim, floor is yours, my friend.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I have about 30 seconds of voice here, so I'll make this short and sweet. You know, no surprise that I'm going to be on Salkilld. He is the massive favorite at minus 700 as we speak. He opened up, I want to say minus 350-ish, minus 400. Massive movement towards him, but I think he's a better fighter here. Jubli is a guy that we haven't seen in a year and a half. Last time we saw him, Mike Breeden was barking at him in the 3rd round, knocked him out. His cardio looked terrible. His demeanor looked terrible. Everything looked terrible. Apparently he had a nose injury in 2024 that sidelined him for a year. I don't know what the situation is with that. He was in India. He never left India. So, what kind of training is he doing? I just think that's with Salkilld. We saw him in the Contender Series. He looked really good against Gage Young. He has an 80% finish rate. And I think ultimately he'll win inside the distance. I did take Salkilld and under 2.5. That line was plus 104. I think Jubli is going to be in for a world of pain here in this fight. I don't think he belongs in the UFC. I think he's here because they wanted to tap into the India market, realize that, okay, this guy's probably not that good. They're feeding him to the Australian here in Salkilld, who will be fighting. This is the second fight on this card in Australia. He will be the first Australian fighter to appear in front of the Australian fans. So they're going to be jacked up. He's going to be jacked up. He's going to want a quick win here. He's not going to want to toy around with Jubli, who shouldn't be here. Jubli is he's just not good. Not that Salkilld is amazing, but I think he's a lot better than Jubli all over the place. Anywhere he wants to go, he can take it there. And I just think this ends inside the distance. I did take under 2.5. Inside the distance was like minus 130. I got a little bit greedy. We'll see what happens, but that's my pick here is Salkilld under 2.5 plus 104. So Mike, let's look at the recap and wrap this thing up.
Great job, gentlemen. I know it's a battle week in and week out with these bookies here. I feel like we've positioned you guys to make some money, get these bets early, and get yourselves ready for Saturday. It's a night card here in Australia, 5:30 p.m. We're going to pop off with our early card breakdown. The Sports Money crew will be ready to guide you guys to victory. Stay tuned for the UFC playbook. That will be released here very shortly. We've talked about it this week on the Sports Money Network, and appreciate everybody that's taken the time to tune in. Watch this video, smash that thumbs up button. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Turn your notifications on so that you're always in the know when we drop this content. Beat these line moves, cash these checks, build bigger bankrolls. We'll see you guys on Saturday for all of Sports Money. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.